Well, thank you all for joining us this evening for this part of our series on the climate challenge. And tonight's topic is about earth-friendly giving. Whoops, that was not what I was trying to do. And so I'm just going to briefly go over our agenda for the evening. So we will speak for a minute about the science and the mission of the organization. I'm going to give an announcement for next time. Then we will have the presentation about earth-friendly holiday celebrations. Come bring a chair around here, Rhonda. Then we will have a presentation from our speaker, Elizabeth Burton, about the climate footprint of cruise ships and different policies for them. That's because every one of our climate change things, we also talk about a policy issue. And how I paired cruise ships with holidays is because a lot of people around this time of the year plan whatever trips or vacations they think they're taking next year. And then we will be reviewing the carbon footprint handout, which all of you are online and not in person, so that is going to be a little interesting. I will have to screen share it up when we get to that part. And then we're going to break you into support groups. We'll have breakout rooms on here for you to chat with other people about what you want to do with some of the information that's been presented to you this evening. So that is what we are doing. And I encourage you as we go through tonight's presentation to ask questions or make comments as we go. That is just fine with me, and you can raise your Zoom hand or your real hand, and I will see you and we will proceed accordingly. So the science here is that as we burn fossil fuels, it creates greenhouse gases that sit in the atmosphere like a blanket, trapping heat. Everything we manufacture produces at least some greenhouse gases, and some of the products use oil in the process or in the product. So the footprint of stuff. Fossil fuels are consumed in the extraction phase of getting raw materials. The transportation of materials uses fossil fuels. The manufacturing uses fossil fuels, and then the transport to distributors, to stores, and to homes, that all uses gas. And a side note would be that all materials are not equal. We are not going to live without consuming, but we can be conscious about reducing our footprint. So this is Restoring Earth Connection, my organization's mission. We seek a change in how we relate to the natural world. The current paradigm teaches domination over Earth, causing cataclysmic changes that threaten life on Earth. However, there is a new and ancient paradigm that recognizes the necessity for interdependence, reciprocal relationships with Earth. We pursue this vision through advocacy for climate stability, increasing biodiversity, social justice, and sustainable environmental practices. So here are just some questions to sort of think about as you're listening to the rest of the slideshow. How would you appreciate the holidays if foremost in mind was that you are in a reciprocal relationship with an abundant earth to which you owe love, gratitude, and protection? How can your holidays emphasize connection with others over material giving? And is it possible to honor the spirit of a family tradition while altering the actual structure? So with holiday consumerism, as it is generally practiced in the United States, there's a lot of obligatory giving, gifts that are oftentimes unwelcome or unused. Lots of party favors and stocking stuffers that are sort of cheap, junky things that get thrown away. We also tend to have throwaway paperware for parties and meals, and throwaway decorations. And we throw away wrappings that are on everything. And a lot of that is not creating holiday joy. We might be able to make an argument for some of it if it was, but a lot of times it really isn't. So things to be especially avoided would be plastic and polyester. In the case of plastic toys, one could try wood or fabric or paper. Plastic doodahs that are in stocking stuffers. And then various plastic household items like bins, kitchen things. One could substitute metal or wicker. Polyester clothing. I don't know that everyone is aware that polyester is actually made out of oil. So we are literally wearing oil on our bodies. So pretty much any other material gets you out of the oil problem. And then polar fleece, not only does it use oil again, but it releases little tiny microplastics into the water every time you wash it. So I know there's a spot at one point on that, but this says fabric guide, and it lists different kinds of fabric materials that you can find with clothing, indicating which ones are natural and which ones are not. And basically, most of the ones listed here, cotton, hemp, bamboo, wool, cashmere, pashmina, alpaca, angora, viscose are all, and rayon are all natural. Then you have nylon, which is a plastic synthetic polymer, spandex, and modal, which is a type of rayon, and polyester. So something to keep in mind when you are buying clothing items. So some questions to ask. Does my friend or family member need or want this item? Will they use this thing? How long will this thing last? Will it create the burden of clutter or care and maintenance? And are there other ways of showing love besides giving a thing? And so here is a big list, and I will try to stay on this slide for a little while here, of meaningful gifts that one can give without giving stuff. So this is kind of the basic idea of this list, is to give an experience instead of a thing. So there's things like play or concert tickets, sports tickets, restaurant gift certificates, which can work well even if you're giving to a relative who lives across the country. Lessons of some kind, art, sports, yoga, etc. A spa or pedicure or massage. Baked goods that you give instead of small cheap items, i.e. they might be baked goods made by you. Float tank or some other very unusual experience. Zoo or museum tickets. Giving your time to them in some way that they would value. And making something. An Airbnb certificate or a trip, but avoid cruises. Before I go to the next slide, I'm just going to see if anybody has a favorite one that they want to add to this list.
I do.
Okay, Rhonda in the room is suggesting one. Yes, Rhonda.
A homemade apple pie.
So kind of a baked good. Yes. Thank you.
I have one.
Yes, Tara has one too.
This year, my friend's birthday falls almost always either on Thanksgiving or the day before or after Thanksgiving. And I really wanted to get her something valuable. She's got a lot of stuff. And so I got her I bought her a class led by in cedar weaving, led by a local
Ooh, very cool.
member of the Nisqually tribe, because I was thinking like now she'll
Nice.
learn how to weave fibers,
Right.
and maybe learn how to collect and harvest sustainably, and learn how to weave that for herself.
I have another.
I don't know if everyone was able to hear Tara, but she was saying that she gave her friend a gift of a class where you could learn how to weave cedar. And I'm guessing that that class is through Artibus.
It is.
Yes, so those who are local to Olympia, Artibus classes are a wonderful gift to give. Yes, Rhonda.
Another one, I have a dear friend who I'm gifting with the experience of the Lion King in Seattle.
Ooh, a performance of the Lion King in Seattle.
Followed by, in the morning, because neither one of us want to drive at night, is a trip to the Seattle Aquarium.
Ooh.
And a trip to the Seattle Aquarium. Yeah. So we can either give things locally or maybe a little bit of a trip out. Okay. I'm going to go to the next slide. What about gifting children? So if you cannot get off the stuff train because kids do need things to play with, then consider going lower on the food chain of carbon footprint. So toys made out of wood or cloth instead of plastic or polar fleece. Special experiences like the zoo or a children's play. One of my friends who was aunt to my daughter gave her a children's play every single year. Cooperative games or puzzles, books instead of electronics, and for older kids, the gift of giving. Or concert tickets, then you'll be cool. And when I say the gift of giving, I have an example on the next slide. So some of you maybe already know about Heifer International, but you can see in here that you can give, and they have many other animals besides the 3 that are on here. So here they're showing a water buffalo, a goat, or a flock of chickens. And, you know, the water buffalo is very expensive and the goat is pretty expensive too, but they also allow people to buy $20 shares of a goat. So you're giving part of a goat to a family that would use this to produce food and income for their family in another country. And Rhonda is saying that bees is also one of the things that they have on here. So with children, if you're asking them to have this as a gift, then part of the gift is sitting with you and picking which animal they want to give. And so they don't really care about the idea of shares. And so you can decide how much you're giving in their name, but they get to pick which animal to give. And I find that for teenagers, this can be really kind of a nice gift that helps them start to move into that space of what do you do with privilege and being able to give and to not have everything be just about oneself. The office party alternative, a white elephant party. I don't know how many of you, I'd like to see a show of hands, have ever been at a white elephant party. I've got 2 people in the room who have, and Mark has. Okay, so, and so has Sheila. So this was done in a workplace that I was in, and it was so much more preferable than people giving each other these polite, meaningless, stupid things like candles or whatever, which one may or may not even like, the little polite, stupid thing that people gave you. So the idea of a white elephant party is everyone brings wrapped up, the more elegantly the better, something that someone might like, but that the giver is happy to be parting with. People are given random numbers, and the person who goes first picks the gift that they want to open and discover what white elephant they have received in there. But the person who goes second gets to either steal that gift or pick another gift. And each person thereafter can steal a gift or open a new one. And if they steal a gift, the person who it was stolen from gets to open one from the middle. So by the end, everybody has a gift, but there's usually some very bizarre item that becomes hotly desirable, and everybody fights over it and tries to get that particular item. There's a lot of stealing that goes on, and it's usually a lot more fun when stealing goes on. I have played this game with very tame people who were so polite that they would steal from each other. It sort of takes the fun out of the whole thing. But I still have as cherished items a tin drummer Christmas tree ornament where the tin drummer only has one arm, and also a bizarrely too big other Christmas ornament that someone gave in a white elephant party that I was part of. So now there are some families where the whole family gets together and it's really big and there's like 15 people in the family, and so instead of everybody giving a gift, they pull numbers and you just give to the one person that you were assigned. And that often also doesn't work out very well because someone's giving to their brother-in-law who they don't really know. So I think that this white elephant idea could even work in big families. What about the Christmas tree? So that is always a question or a fight or an argument that some people have about what is better for the environment. So I am going to take a little poll here, so get ready to put your hand up for one thing or the other. I'm going to have you vote to say, and somebody probably already knows the answer to this, so don't just shout it out. You will get to vote your wonderful knowledge. But so I'm going to say how many people, first I'll say how many people believe that a real tree has a lower carbon footprint, and then I'll say how many people think an artificial tree has a lower carbon footprint, and we'll see what we believe. Then I will reveal the answer. So, ready to vote? You know where your voting thing is below, or if you're not going to use the voting thing below, then you'll have to turn your camera on so I can see your hands. Okay, how many people think that the real tree has a lower carbon footprint? Okay, only one person is voting that way online and one person in the room. So we've got, oh, no, Elizabeth too. Okay, so I've got 3 people who are voting that the real tree. Okay, now let's see how many of you are actually voting. So how many are you voting that the artificial tree has the lower footprint? Okay, I've got 2, 3. Okay, there's a bunch of you not voting. Tisk, tisk. Okay. So it looks like we split in the vote. Some of you are going to be prepared to be very surprised. Turns out the real tree has a lower carbon footprint. Why is this? Yeah, Mark is celebrating. The reason for that is that the real tree absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere while growing, providing environmental benefits, and then it has a lower carbon footprint of 3.5 kilograms of CO2 in the composting, chipping, and burning of the energy after the holiday season. Whereas the artificial trees are typically made from non-biodegradable petroleum-based plastic and metal in an energy-intensive manufacturing process. Most are manufactured in China and shipped a long distance, adding to their carbon footprint, and most have a substantial carbon footprint of 40 kilograms of CO2 for a 3-foot tree, and they are not recyclable, and they will, when they eventually are put in the garbage, they end up in the landfill for thousands of years.
Can I say something about that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The artificial tree, though, is reusable from year to year.
Yes, it's
So
still
you can get use of that for many, many years.
well, but see,
Not
if it's
thousands.
if it's got a 40 kilogram footprint versus a 3.51, you have to have it for at least 12 years for even that part to match. and then that still doesn't match on the use of the petroleum, etc. So I know it's a surprising outcome, different than what one might think, but that is the case. So, okay, next slide. Yeah, and then what to do about throwaway tinsel and glitter. And by which I don't just mean decorations, I mean all the stuff we throw away at this point in this time of the year. So there's a higher use of throwaway plates, tables, tablecloths, plastic silverware, etc. You could invite family members to take turns rinsing and washing as a social and earth-friendly activity in the kitchen post-meal. Don't use ornaments that are one-time ones to throw away. Definitely avoid plastic ornaments as much as possible. If you use lights, use LED. Consider woven items that you can use that have a color pop instead of lights. And then onto the wrapping paper. So some options are having kids do art on boxes for permanently decorated boxes. Using some wrapping paper to permanently wrap a box that will be used multiple times. Get those gift bags that are out there and reuse them over and over again. Buy some yards of cloth with holiday images on them and ribbons and use those over and over again from year to year. Or experiences or service gifts, of course, can go in an envelope and don't require wrapping paper at all. And then I have for you the story of the pizza box. So my daughter was getting a guitar for Christmas one year, and some people try to use like whole rolls of wrapping paper to wrap up really big things that they give. We had started a joke with her weeks in advance when she would ask us what she was getting, that we were giving her pizza. And she kept saying, "No, you're not. No, you're not." And we would just smile and say, "Yep, we're giving you pizza for Christmas." So under the tree, she found a pizza box, and she was a little rattled about this. She was like, "Oh my God, are they really giving me a pizza?" And we said, "Well, go ahead and open it." So she opened the pizza box. And inside was a note that said, "Look in the closet, the hall closet." And in the hall closet was the guitar. Aww. So that was good fun, and it's a fondly remembered story in our house. You definitely, if you have a big thing, you do not have to use a whole bunch of wrapping paper for it. And this is some examples here of what I was just talking about. So that's wrapping paper permanently on that box. This is a permanently decorated box. And then those are fabrics below that are holiday fabrics. So another thing is, how can we make the holidays special with experiences rather than focusing on gift giving? And I want to say, I am not assuming that everybody who's watching this celebrates Christmas. Hanukkah has been treated kind of strangely, like it was not a holiday that originally involved gift giving at all, but that has been a bit of a trend inside the United States in order to deal with all the high giving that happens at that time of the year. And I think that there are other religions and other traditions that also have sadly somewhat Americanized their holiday in order to keep up with all the giving that goes on. So I, in general, am trying in this presentation to address the tendency towards making things material, and I hope one can apply this to other traditions as well. So, how to make the holidays special with making special experiences rather than focusing on gift giving. So, making and decorating cookies together or other baked goods. Do a caroling party. This is something that used to be very common and has become not so common anymore. If you don't feel comfortable going to strangers' houses singing, you can always do targeted caroling and go visit friends or neighbors of yours with this. My daughter and a friend of ours did this during the height of the pandemic, and people just really loved it. It was such a treat to have this. They didn't have to let us in with our potential COVID germs, but they could just enjoy us singing outside in the air. Making ornaments with somebody is fun. Visit the snow if it does not visit you. My daughter and I used to drive up to the Snoqualmie Pass to play in the snow because it does rarely snow here. And then family acts of service. There are all kinds of ways that one can do some social service activity at this time of year. Attending a religious service, going and seeing Christmas lights or special displays or concerts, reading a special holiday story together and letting that be sort of a tradition, or visiting a special place overnight. And I would say about that story that a client of mine who was a single mom, she did not have money to take her kids on a trip, but she wanted to do something every year that would make it really special for them. And so she would rent a hotel room in a hotel in downtown Seattle. They would spend only one night there, but they would go and look at the lights there, and they would get to go in the pool in the hotel and get to have a special meal. And so it was just a way that she made something special at the time of the holidays. Favorite movies. So a lot of families have a ritual of some Christmas movie that is their favorite one that they always watch every year at the holidays. And I have listed a couple here. And I have to say, in our family, watching It's a Wonderful Life is absolutely an annual tradition. I know that many people younger than me would look at it as a black and white movie and be kind of like, oh, this is 100-year-old movie. This is weird. But I have to tell you, any movie in which people getting to own homes over landlords and people caring about other people instead of profit, that will always be the top of my list. I think it teaches really good values. I thought we would just do a little shout out. I would love to hear what some of you, what some of your favorite movies are for the holidays. Who has a favorite Christmas movie or other holiday movie? Well, am I really the only one?
Love Actually is pretty good.
Okay, we've got a nomination of Love Actually.
I love Elf with Will Ferrell.
Also,
Uh-huh.
The Grinch.
The Grinch.
Yes, with Jim Carrey.
Yes, The Grinch. Okay, we say the Jim Carrey version, not the cartoon version. Anyone else?
Scrooge.
Scrooge, yes. Okay, all right.
Michael Caine. I like that one.
Right.
The Michael Caine
Yeah,
version,
yeah.
I'm being told. All right. Okay. Hearing no other nominations, I'm going to go on to the next one. Okay. So here are the questions for the evening. What was the most interesting thing you learned tonight? And by the way, these questions I will be putting up when you are in breakout rooms. Actually, I'm going to stop the sharing for a minute because we're not really ready for these yet. We are going to be having our presentation by Elizabeth before we do that. Oh gosh, there's 2 people in the waiting room.
Oh, one of them's me.
Oh, I'm not admitting you. Well, I don't think you need to be. I mean, do you
I just wanted to
want to be admitted?
I just want to look at the chat.
Okay, sorry to the person who just got admitted. I suspect you were in the waiting room for quite a while and we were doing the presentation and didn't see that. You will, however, be in time for the second presentation, and this whole thing was recorded. So that's for the person who just was here. Okay, this is going to take me a minute and it may require some of Tira's help. I have to take down the one I'm sharing right now, and I have to switch to Elizabeth's presentation. Elizabeth is the one who is presenting to us about cruises. So, okay.
Lynn, I actually would like to start my presentation without the slides. I'd like to start, is that okay? Just talking without the slides?
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Elizabeth Burton. I'm based in Seattle, and I work with both Seattle Cruise Control and the Global Cruise Activist Network. And I want to start by, I'll preface this by saying everything I'm presenting tonight is backed up by references. And if anyone's interested after this is over, I'm happy to type up a list of references and send them to Lynn, and she can forward them to you. So I want to start this by telling you about a survey that Time Magazine did in 2023. One second. Half of their respondents, they found, thought of cruising as an eco-friendly activity, eco-friendly way to travel. And I am here to tell you that this is false. Cruise ships are, in fact, actually the most polluting means of travel available to the general public. So go ahead and start the slides, please.
Okay, just a second. All right, are people seeing that? I think we have to click here.
You need to put it in slideshow mode.
There, okay.
Perfect, yes.
Okay,
Please back up one.
there, okay.
Okay, thank you. So this is the theme of my talk. Go ahead, please advance. And here's a brief overview. I want to make clear that this is not an exhaustive list of cruise harms, but these are some of the major harms that cruise ships cause. They destabilize the climate. They emit massive amounts of toxic water pollution and air pollution. Wrecking the climate and polluting water and air are, of course, harmful to human health and the health of other living things. But in addition, there's a separate health category because they also spread viral disease, and not just COVID. They're known for horrific labor exploitation of the workers below deck, and they overwhelm and basically colonize the communities all over the world that they visit. Next slide, please.
Oops, sorry. There.
So cruise is a global billion-dollar industry that is also one of the most exploitative and polluting industries in the world. These two facts are closely related. The reason cruise is so profitable is precisely because cruise companies exploit their workers, burn the cheapest and most polluting fuel, avoid paying taxes, and skirt environmental laws. How do they get away with this? Next slide. So one thing that makes this possible is something called flags of convenience. These may have headquarters in the United States, but they register their ships in places like Bahamas, Panama, and Malta. Right? Because these countries have weak to non-existent laws regarding labor, environment,
Elizabeth, something's happening with your microphone. You're getting kind of a little sounding underwater. I don't know if there's anything you can adjust.
Okay, let me know if it clears up.
That's much better.
Terrific. Okay. All right. So the flags of convenience also allows the ships, this allows them to avoid paying any US taxes. In addition, the agency that's in charge of regulating international shipping, it's part of the United Nations, unfortunately has been captured by the shipping industry. For years, it has thwarted effective action to reduce shipping's climate impact. It won't impose decent labor standards. It basically blocks any action that might hurt shipping's bottom line. Even when laws exist, the ships often flout them. For example, Carnival Corporation, the world's largest cruise company, has a 50-year history of repeated felony convictions for environmental crimes, including over 700 violations of probation, some as recent as 2022. To this company, because they have so much money, paying the fines is just the cost of doing business. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go into some detail about the climate and water pollution on the Seattle to Alaska cruise route because I'm based in Seattle and my work focuses on this. But the problems are similar all over the world. Next slide. So this shows a typical cruise from Seattle to Alaska. Next slide. So Alaska represents about 5% of the global cruise market, and about half of Alaskan cruises start and end in Seattle. This year, 2025, Seattle hosted about 944,000 passengers on almost 300 sailings, more than ever before. Most of these passengers are not local, so this year, Seattle's cruise season included over 800,000 round-trip flights for people to get here and get home again. Next slide. And here's how this affects the climate. In 2025, on their entire journey to Alaska and back, the ships emitted 1.9 million metric tons of greenhouse gases. The associated round-trip flights that brought the passengers here and home again emitted another 1.1 million tons, for a total of 3 million tons of greenhouse gases. For context, this amount is equal to over half of the annual emissions from the entire city of Seattle, even though the cruise season is only 6 months long. So for the record, Seattle's emissions were about 5.7 million tons. And this year's emissions is almost a 60% increase over cruise sector emissions from 2019, the last year prior to the pandemic. Next, please. Most cruise ships are a lot larger than the Titanic and are twice as high. Many ships that come to Seattle and elsewhere in the world carry over 4,000 passengers and between 1,000 and 2,000 crew members for a total of 5,000 to 6,000 people. This slide shows how a large cruise ship compares to the Space Needle, a Boeing Dreamliner 787 jet, and a humpback whale. Next slide. And the industry continues to build bigger and bigger ships. This shows the largest cruise ship in the world, the Icon of the Seas. It's 19 stories tall, carries 5,600 passengers and 2,300 crew. So I want to go back to that Time magazine survey that I mentioned at the beginning, where half the respondents thought that cruising is eco-friendly. So let's apply some common sense. Dragging an 8,000-person resort around with you, especially one that has 7 swimming pools, an ice rink, a surf simulator, and 27 restaurants, like the Icon of the Seas, this is not an efficient way to travel. In fact, per passenger mile, going on a cruise ship is twice as bad for the climate as flying in an airplane. And airplanes are really bad for the climate. Next slide. In addition to wrecking the climate, each year, Seattle's cruise ships are responsible for an astonishing amount of water pollution. Washington State has temporary protections in place, so this pollution is mostly dumped in Canadian waters. But of course, the ocean is connected, and this pollution affects marine life all along the coast. So as you can see, 4 billion gallons are dumped each season. These wastes include sewage and gray water from showers, sinks, laundry, and kitchens. But the truth is, over 95% of this pollution is something called toxic scrubber waste. Scrubbers are basically emissions cheat systems. They were introduced to reduce the air pollution that results from burning the cheapest and dirtiest fuel. Scrubbers continuously spray millions of gallons of seawater into the smokestack of the cruise ship. The water captures the pollutants from the exhaust and dumps them into the ocean, basically turning air pollution into water pollution. Scrubber waste is warm, acidic, and full of toxic contaminants that are deadly to marine life, from plankton to salmon to orcas. A peer-reviewed scientific study found that even tiny amounts of scrubber waste had devastating effects on the base of the marine food chain. Instead of using scrubbers, ships could comply with air pollution regulations by switching to cleaner and slightly more expensive fuel. And in fact, a statewide bill will be introduced in the legislature next year to require just this. Next slide. Cruise ships have additional negative impacts on marine life. It's not uncommon for them to strike and kill whales. The noise they generate interferes with marine mammals' abilities to do echolocation, which is what they use for finding both food and mates. Cruise ships increase ocean acidification, both by emitting greenhouse gases, which get absorbed by the ocean, where the carbon dioxide turns into carbonic acid, and also by directly dumping huge amounts of acidic scrubber waste. Next. The ships overwhelm the small communities along the Alaska route. They actually overwhelm communities all over the world. The ships pollute the local air as they idle at the dock for many hours. They crash the internet. Thousands of passengers get off and pile into tour buses, which spew exhaust and tie up traffic, interfere with emergency vehicles, and with locals' ability to access local services. In Juneau, there's daily constant helicopter noise from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. all summer as tourists are flown to and from a nearby glacier, which, by the way, is melting thanks partly to the cruise ships. Skagway, shown in this slide, has a population of a little over 1,000, and on some days they get over 10,000 tourists. But again, I want to emphasize that cruise ships are a problem all over the world. I'll just briefly mention a few other locations. In Venice, the wake from cruise ships are destroying the lagoon and the ancient buildings. In Key West, Florida, it has the third largest barrier reef, and cruise ships damage it as they approach the town. Anti-fouling coating on cruise ships endangers New Zealand's marine ecosystem. Next slide. So thank you for your attention to this brief tour of cruise harms. There's a lot more to say, including about the greenwashing that ports and cruise lines engage in. I actually just found out that this was supposed to be policy oriented when Lynn said that at the beginning of this meeting, so I apologize for that, but there are a list of some things you can do. The number one thing would be avoid taking cruises and perhaps encourage your friends to avoid them. Help pass the low sulfur fuel bill that's coming next in the legislative session.
That was what I had in mind.
What's that?
That was what I had in mind when I said policy implications.
Yeah. Oppose building. And then we've got a couple things that are coming up that may need public support. There is credible, my organization heard from a credible source that the Port of Seattle may be planning to build yet another cruise terminal. Seattle already has two, and they may be building a third one. We're not certain about that yet, but if they do, we need a lot of opposition. And they may be lifting their temporary scrubber waste ban. We're kind of waiting to find out what happens with that. Seattle Cruise Control has a website, and one of the pages is an agenda for the port. I will say that the website, it's a little outdated, especially the climate section, which it doesn't have the current 2025 information, but we hope to get that up soon. And you can join if you get on our email list. We won't inundate you with email. We send occasional emails. We do demonstrations and have letter writing campaigns when issues are live. So that's a way to keep in touch with local action.
Elizabeth, someone in the room had a comment here. What did you want to say?
Or a question.
Question? Okay.
Sure.
For the low, it's a low sulfur bill.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know, does it have a prime sponsor yet?
Yes, it does. It's Representative Lakonoff and Senator Lovelet.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Do other people, I'm going to take down the screen share so we can see each other better, and I'm going to ask those who can to turn on their cameras and then see if people have questions for Elizabeth.
Yes. I have a question.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, what about smaller cruise ships like Lindblad who say that they offset their carbon footprint? Do you have thoughts on them? They have maybe 100 people, 90 people on board, some of the smaller ones.
So clearly they're not going to do as much, they're not going to damage the climate or have as much water pollution, et cetera, as these large ones. Study after study has shown that carbon offsets are baloney. I mean, there's not enough carbon offsets in the world to offset the amount of.
I agree with you more. A carbon offset is a forest that isn't going to get cut down. It was growing anyway. So beyond that, a smaller vessel, though, wouldn't it have a much smaller disastrous footprint than a huge city hotel turned on its side afloat?
Yes. Of course, we don't want thousands and thousands of small cruise ships. I mean, it's the question is how widespread are they going to become? One thing, it may be possible for a small cruise ship to run on batteries, depending on how far they're going, or sails. There's modern sails that look like metal towers.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I can't really address. I'm not familiar with that line, but I just have kind of common sense answers to you that yes, a very small cruise ship is going to do less harm. But of course, we don't want those to proliferate. And, if there's 30 million people taking cruises, whether they're taking them on small cruise ships or big cruise ships, it's still a problem.
And they still have scrubbers and things like that.
Well, not necessarily. Some of the small cruise ships. So that's something you might want to ask them. What kind of fuel do they use? Scrubbers are only used if it's high sulfur fuel, basically the heavy fuel oil.
Yeah. Looks like Heather has a question.
How are the workers exploited?
Oh gosh, some of them are paid as little as $2 an hour. They sign contracts for maybe 10 months at a time with no days off, work 12 to 14-hour days, have inadequate health care. Yeah, it's really bad.
Captive.
Yeah, they're captive on the boat.
Yeah. And I want to emphasize this isn't all of them. It's mostly the ones who are below deck who, you don't see as much of though. And it's so racialized, like the ones who interact with the cruise passengers tend to be, whiter and.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else have more questions for Elizabeth? Well, Thank you, Elizabeth. I thought that was a great presentation. I thought you did a really good job of succinctly covering the mess of it all. So, and someone is saying cruise ship waste. I'm not quite sure what you're wanting to say about that, Mark. Was that a question or?
I have another one.
Okay, Rhonda has.
You didn't mention, Elizabeth, the personal risk of going on board a vessel where you are trapped with whatever pathogens are on board by some other passengers, not limited to COVID, but once you're on that vessel, you're not getting off easily. And if somebody has something very transmissible, Legionnaire's disease is one, COVID is one. It's just a giant petri dish, and it's hard to escape if there's a serious infectious disease on board.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I actually did mention it right at the beginning when I showed it was the second slide that bloop, 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 and it said health. And I mentioned, yes, they also spread diseases. And you are absolutely right. COVID is not the only one. And I'll just to bring you up to date, as I say, I'm a member, the Global Cruise Activist Network meets every other week. And so I'm in touch with cruise activists around the country and the world. And just 2 weeks ago, a big cruise ship pulled into Portland, Maine, and 11% of the passengers had norovirus. And the Portland, Maine Health Department and city officials had no precautions in place whatsoever. My friend, the cruise activist there, she took it upon herself to type up, information and post it around and get it to the local media. But yeah, you are absolutely right. That it's a danger not only to the people on board, but very much to the local communities that they visit. 10,000 people get off of cruise ships and spread out into these small towns.
Yeah.
Okay, well, again, thank you, Elizabeth. And we are now going to go into the support group part of this, which is a chance to process what you want to do, both about things you heard this evening, and then also as you go into the new year, things that you want to do to reduce your carbon footprint. And I do have a handout for that, which I'm going to struggle to figure out how to share with those of you that are online. But I am first going to work on the project of screen sharing again the questions that we have to discuss in the group. Okay.
I'm going to say goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, bye, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. Okay, can people see that? Can people see that? Heather, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Thank you. Okay. So when I get you divided into groups, there's sort of two sections of this. Can you guys be a little quieter? That's okay.
I need to leave.
Pardon?
I'm going to need to leave.
You're going to need to leave. Okay, well, okay, so the two sections are, what was the most interesting thing you learned tonight? This is section one. How would you appreciate the holidays if foremost in mind was what you are that you are in reciprocal relationship with an abundant earth to which you owe love, gratitude, and protection? How can your holidays emphasize connection with others over material giving? Is it possible to honor the spirit of a family tradition while altering the actual structure? What will your plan be for reducing your holiday footprint? And how might you influence others to reduce their footprint or take less or not take cruises? And then we will switch to a handout, which I am going to figure out how to get to you while you're working on the first part of this discussion. And that handout shows you a whole menu of options for reducing your climate footprint, and there's some questions that go along with that in terms of how you might implement that in the new year. So I am going to figure out how to divide you into, well, let's see how many people we have. I think actually at this point, given the number of people we have, I'm not going to send you into a group. I'm going to leave you all together here. And that's good because then I can keep screen sharing up the questions. So, okay. I do encourage people to turn on their cameras if they can, because I think it's going to make it easier for you to talk to each other if you do that. And I'm just gonna, I think what I'll do is I'm gonna call on people to go around the circle, so to speak, which is really the square. And I'm gonna stop the recording for this part because the people, the good people who will be listening to this later don't need to hear all your personal answers. So, okay.